I like to speak on very important aspect of the teachings of the Buddha. Buddha's teaching is described as in a very beautiful passage which goes like this. Well expounded is the Dhamma by the Exalted One, directly visible, unaffected by time, calling one to come and see, leading onwards to be realized by the wise. This passage includes the description and the qualities of the Dhamma that Buddha taught. Out of all these qualities, I like to take one and want to spend a few minutes explaining the significance of this particular quality. That is called come and see. This is a very popular term that most people are quite familiar with, and also a term that most people have misunderstood. I like to point out few things in this particular phrase, particular quality of the teachings of the Buddha. Come and see, when you hear the word come and see, you begin to wonder who sent this invitation. Come and see is an invitation. People ask you to come and see a video, come and see this movie, come and see this picture, come and see this animal, and so forth and so on. Always you hear somebody asking you to come and see. Similarly, when you hear this phrase, come and see, you might wonder who sent this invitation. Some people say Buddha sent this invitation. In fact, friends, Buddha never sent any invitation to anybody. Buddha simply said that this invitation is there, and therefore we should not think that Buddha sent invitations to people, come and see him, come and see the Dhamma. He was not interested in sending invitations. And therefore, when you receive this invitation, come and see, or read this particular part, come and see, you begin to wonder who sent the invitation and asking you to come where and to see what. These are the three things you got to look at and think of. Who sent the invitation, asking you to go where, and to see what. This invitation comes to you from the Dhamma. Dhamma invites you. And where is this Dhamma? And where should you go to see this Dhamma? Is it going to a library, opening books, or going to a temple, going to a bookshop, or a shopping mall? Where can you see the Dhamma? So, invitation comes from the Dhamma, and where is this Dhamma? Dhamma is in us. We are the Dhamma. And the invitation asks us to come. Come where? Come inside. Come within ourselves and see the Dhamma in our own life, in our own body and mind. That is where the Dhamma is. For instance, in the Dhamma we hear very most fundamental truth, because Dhamma itself is the truth. In fact, when Buddha delivered his first sermon, he called this the truth, and we call it not simple truth but Four Noble Truth. So truth and Dhamma are not two different things. He asks us to come and see the truth, which is synonymous with the Dhamma. And the truth and the Dhamma, as they are synonymous, must be something that exists in you, in me, in everybody, everywhere. Because the truth cannot be different from person to person, time to time, place to place, situation to situation. It is true all the time, everywhere, whether it is me or you. And the Buddha also said, whether the Buddhas come into existence or not, this established Dhamma exists. He said in Pali, I try to refrain from using Pali language, which is the beautiful language that the Buddha himself used to teach the Dhamma. Since not too many people understand the language, I try not to use the language. In that he said, bhikkhus, whether the Buddhas come into existence or not, this established Dhamma exists. That, what is the established Dhamma? That all conditioned things are impermanent. That a Buddha understood, realized, comprehended. Having understood, realized, comprehended, he declared, expounded, explained and taught to the world that all conditioned things are impermanent. And this is an established Dhamma. This Dhamma is not established by somebody outside the Dhamma, but within the Dhamma itself, this truth, this reality exists. And therefore, the Dhamma that exists within us invites us to see this truth within ourselves. And that is what come and see means. That means come within, come inside, come closer, look inside, don't look outside. This is the beauty of Dhamma. Normally, we are so obsessed in looking outside for truth, for reality, sometimes or most of the time for our own problems. We look outside. Friends, the truth is within us. This impermanence is within us. Another thing is the Buddha taught in his Dhamma is that that Dhamma exists within us. What is that Dhamma that exists within us? That is, that which is impermanent is necessarily, always, without any exception, is unsatisfactory or suffering. Not because it is impermanent that is suffering, but because of our clinging or craving, attachment to impermanent things, thinking that impermanent things are permanent. And that is suffering. And therefore that suffering also does not exist outside ourselves. It exists within ourselves. We experience suffering. So we have to look at suffering within ourselves, inside our own experience. Then that which is impermanent and subject to suffering because of our attachment to that impermanent things, we realize another truth, that also true, not artificially true, but realistically, factually true. That is, all conditioned things are impermanent, all conditioned things are unsatisfactory. Therefore, there is no central control to stop this impermanence and to make it permanent, to make unsatisfactory as satisfactory. Unsatisfactoriness is unsatisfactoriness. impermanent. Impermanence is impermanent. No one can make it change, make it permanent. So in our daily experience, we have to see this Dhamma, this reality, this truth. And therefore it is also called unaffected by time. Unaffected by time means the things are impermanent in the time of the Buddha, or even billions of years ago. From time immemorial things were impermanent. They have been impermanent, they are impermanent, and they are impermanent into the infinity. All the conditioned things are impermanent, and therefore it is called unaffected by time. It is timeless truth. Also it is called unaffected by time because when certain things happen, its result is inevitable and invariable. For instance, when you are angry, full of hatred, you don't have to wait for a second to feel the impact of your anger. As soon as anger arises, you feel very painful, uncomfortable, and it is very miserable. Similarly, when the anger disappears, that very instant you experience joy and happiness. When restlessness and worry, fear and tension arise, you experience fear and tension right then and there. When they disappear from your mind, you experience peace, joy and happiness right there, that very moment. And therefore this is what we have to come and see. Come within ourselves, see within ourselves how pain arises, how pain disappears. When pain disappears, how we feel. And this is universally true. It doesn't vary from person to person, situation to situation, time to time. When the conditions, causes and conditions arise, pain arises. When those causes and conditions fade away, disappear, pain disappears. When causes and conditions arise, happiness arises. When causes and conditions disappear, pass away, happiness disappears. So joy, happiness, pain, suffering, and all these are unaffected by time. That means when the causes are there, conditions are there, happiness is bound to happen at that time. Similarly, when causes and conditions are there for unhappiness, pain, suffering, and unhappiness, pain and suffering are the results. Therefore, that reality, that truth we must see within ourselves. There is no any outside power or supernatural, supernormal power to make this happen within ourselves. They happen within ourselves according to the ways things, causes and conditions arise. So when you see the word come and see, you always have to look at yourself, within yourself, to look at your own experience and see how they happens. When you practice, say for instance, friendliness, you become friendly. You relieve your mind of tension, anxiety. You become full of friendly feeling. Remove your hatred. That instant you experience joy and happiness. You become friendly. Everything around you is friendly for you. You cannot create it artificially. It has to come from within your own training, experience and cleansing your mind. And this you can see within yourself. This is what come and see means. Otherwise, That also kammansi is the quality of the Dhamma, as I said. This quality is within yourself. You are the Dhamma, you create the Dhamma, you enjoy the Dhamma, you feel the benefit of Dhamma. The word Dhamma we use very often means that which can exist by itself, upholds upheld by itself. It doesn't need any outside force to maintain and support. For instance, impermanence does not need any outside agents, outside support it to be impermanent. It is impermanent within itself. This is what is called the intrinsic nature of all conditioned things. Intrinsic means that which exists within itself. Similarly, the peace, joy, happiness exists within ourselves only when the things, the conditions are right within ourselves. So we have to look at ourselves, see this happening within ourselves. The next quality of the teachings of the Buddha is called to be realized by the wise, by himself or herself. This is a wonderful quality. Dhamma has to be realized, understood by the wise, not the unwise. And Buddha always repeated that this Dhamma is for the wise, not for the unwise. Because a wise person is the one who trained the mind to look at things in a most realistic way, rather than looking at things in an artificial way. He doesn't try to hide things, but he likes to face things as they happen, as they occur within himself, and look at them as they arise and as they pass away. This is the quality of an intelligent person, wise person. Wise person is the one who learns to accept reality as it arises, rather than trying to run away from reality. And this is also a wonderful quality of the truth of the Dhamma that Buddha taught. Friends, truth, untruth, it is said, has only one leg, but the truth has two legs. The untruth, therefore, cannot last too long. It falls, it becomes weak and disappears. The truth stands forever, and it never becomes weak. Truth remains to be truth. So the wise person's duty is to realize this truth. So for the realization of the truth, one does not go outside oneself. One looks within oneself. Inside, the truth appears, arises within oneself. So, where there is truth, there is Dhamma. If the truth is within ourselves, Dhamma is within ourselves as well. And this Dhamma that Buddha realized also is excellent in the middle, excellent in the middle, excellent in the end. Excellent at the beginning, excellent in the middle, excellent in the end. And therefore it is called well expounded by the Dhamma by the Exalted One. Well expounded means he showed the beginning, excellent beginning. He showed the excellent middle, and he showed the excellent end. What is the excellent beginning? Excellent beginning is discipline, disciplining our senses. It is because through our senses that we experience great deal of pain and suffering. And when we discipline our senses, to the degree and extent we discipline our senses, to that degree and extent we experience joy and happiness. Therefore, disciplining senses is the beginning of the truth and the reality. What is the middle? Middle is called concentration. Of course, concentration does not occur naturally. We have to make certain effort, we have to train ourselves. And the basis of concentration is discipline of our senses. Only disciplined mind can gain true concentration. When the mind is not disciplined, then concentration becomes impossible. And the moment we try to gain concentration, we experience a great deal of restlessness, worry and distress, and we feel remorseful, and therefore concentration will not arise. The third aspect or the third stage of excellency is the end. End is excellent. What is the end? End is wisdom. Wisdom arises from concentration. How? Because it is concentrated mind that can see the truth as it is. When the concentration is not there, we cannot see the truth. What the concentration does, it focuses the mind on the reality. Only when we focus the mind on the reality, that reality becomes clear to us. So concentration helps to gain insight. Insight helps to gain wisdom. So concentration does not arise without training our mind, without disciplining our senses. And therefore, when these three are complete, discipline senses, we discipline our mind. When the mind is disciplined, we gain concentration, and the concentrated mind can see truth and the reality exactly as it is. Without concentration, we don't gain that insight, that wisdom. And therefore, the Dhamma teaches us how to discipline ourselves, how to gain concentration, and then how to gain wisdom. Now, concentration is like a laser beam, and insight is like our eyesight. Of course, insight, concentration also needs another supporting factor. That supporting factor is effort, which also is supported by mindfulness. Now, these are the factors that we find in the Dhamma to make our life happy. So when concentration is focused on the truth, we need the strength to hold the concentration on it, just like a beam. When you laser beam, when you focus laser beam on an object, you have to have a steady hands. When the hands are shaky, even though concentration or the laser beam is strong, you cannot focus the laser beam on the object that you want to focus the laser beam on. For instance, you want to operate cataract using laser beam. If your hand is shaky, you cannot use the laser beam. You will burn all over the patient's eyes. But if you have a powerful steady hands, you can focus laser beam on the cataract. At the same time, you need deep insight, wisdom to see the reality. Wisdom or insight is like your eyes. When you focus your mind, when you focus your laser beam on a cataract, you not only should have strong hands, but also you should have a good eyesight to use the laser beam. Similarly, in the Dhamma we learn to train the mind to gain concentration and develop our insight to see the reality, and use the effort to focus our mind to see the reality and understand the reality exactly as it is. So these are the extremely important factors of the Dhamma that Buddha taught us, in which we have invitation coming from the Dhamma itself, because Dhamma keeps reminding us always to look at ourselves, see within ourselves, realize our own predicaments, our own shortcomings, our own wholesome things, powerful things within ourselves. This mind, in fact, is luminous, luminous by itself, but through the external adventitious psychic irritants, defilements, this mind becomes polluted, unclean, impure. This doesn't mean the mind is always, although it is luminous, it is not totally pure. Luminosity simply means that it has a potential of cleansing, and this potential shows up in luminosity. So we have to make use of this potential of the mind to make it use this luminosity, this potential, to make it clear and pure, and to see the truth as it is, using our wisdom, understanding, only to make our life really peaceful and happy, which we can do in this very life. We don't have to die to experience peace, joy and happiness that we can do, achieve in this life itself.